Welcome to Red and Yellow, the podcast about all things to do with refereeing at grassroots level, looking at the laws of football, speaking to guests, and trying to help you become a better referee, with Adam Humphreys and me, Ed Connell.
I love that. I love that recording in progress that you get on Zoom when you do these things. It makes me feel very official when we start these. It's like, you know, in TV studios when you get that person who does like that 3, 2, and you're live. Like, not that I've ever experienced that.
How are you, Adam? You all right?
Well, now I'm depressed. Just reminding myself that I've never been on live TV.
I've done live TV on a number of occasions.
What do you care to share your stories?
I used to be the occasional guest lawyer on the Kilroy programme.
On Kilroy Silk, really?
Yeah, I was the guest lawyer.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I've got some great video footage of me looking very fresh-faced in a pinstripe suit and sounding very authoritative.
I'd expect nothing less from a lawyer. Wow.
And I did some... I've done things like Sky News and BBC News talking about homophobia in football before.
I remember you. I remember watching you on Sky News, I think, one morning. You messaged me.
I think you heard me on Radio 5, actually.
I'm sure I saw you on TV as well. I did definitely hear you on Radio 5, that's for sure. Because that was when Qatar got named the host of the World Cup, didn't it? And
yeah.
We was all against their human rights record.
Yeah, and we were saying it from the get-go.
Yes.
And it hasn't gone away.
No.
Very sad.
It's very sad.
Anyway, I can see it. You're sat outside in not so sunny Australia.
It is definitely not sunny. That is true. It's a bit cold and it's a bit windy. So if you get a bit of wind noise down my microphone, I do apologize. Which brings me to other apologies I must make. Last week, my microphone wasn't, for some reason, Zoom and my microphone weren't talking to each other. Hence, I sounded like for most of the podcast, I was about 2 foot away. So on the recording that we then published, because I wasn't about to say, let's do it again. That's why I'm not as clear and as crisp as I should be coming to you this bright and early Sunday morning. So that's that. And if my voice sounds a little hoarse today, it's because I've been practicing Basil Fawlty for a play that I am in.
Yes, you're about to appear as Basil Fawlty in a touring production in Australia, aren't you?
Something like that, yeah. My first shows are up in Cairns, which will be fun. At the end of the month. Not that I'm ready, but hey ho, a lot of work to be done.
So I thought before we launched into another exciting...
Wait. I didn't ask how you are. That just makes me sound like I'm a narcissist. How are you?
The shoulder is still very sore, unfortunately, although it is healing slowly.
That's good.
And because I've been injured, there's not really been much going on.
No.
So,
how was football today?
To report. Well, I saw that Chelsea won, which I was very pleased about. And I've just seen the results, but I haven't seen the football because of the shoulder. But
right.
Yeah.
No, I thought you went to watch a game today.
No. It was my brother went to the Chelsea game with my nephew.
Oh, that sounds like it was a sore point. I'm sorry to bring that up. Okay, so we need to take 5 minutes because Ed needs to cry into his pillow.
No, we won't. It's all good.
Good. Excellent. Right. Right. So what are we going to start with? You were on a spiel before I interrupted you.
Well, I thought that before we delved into the enthralling law number 4.
Hey, you say that. Stop putting them down. I think number 4 is enthralling. I think there's some really important points in it.
Yeah. So I thought we would deal with a quite hot topic in terms of news, because since we recorded the last podcast, there was an incident where a referee was assaulted at a game up in Lancashire. And
it was Wigan, wasn't it? Wigan?
I don't know where exactly it was. I know it was Lancashire FA that released a statement about it.
Right.
But interestingly, the referee suffered a broken collarbone, which I know from personal experience is a particularly unpleasant injury to suffer. But it's kind of brought to the fore the issue again about the safety of referees and the problems regarding violence towards referees. And obviously the FA reacted pretty swiftly. And I think we retweeted from our account the statement they did, in which they said, this is unacceptable. I think they used the hashtag enough is enough.
Yep.
But as a lot of people have been saying on social media, has been going on for a long, long time, and it's not really, it doesn't seem to be getting any better. I mean, I don't know. Have you ever been sort of the victim of an assault on the football pitch or football related assault?
Yes, I have. I mean,
Now
you,
that is terrible. I mean, the fact you simply say that and you kind of say it, obviously meaning there's been more than one occasion. I mean, that is a really terrible situation.
well, I've been verbally abused, and by that I don't mean I have also been physically abused, but I'll get to that in a minute. I've been verbally abused, and by that I don't mean like, oh, the referees or whatever, or just general kind of players swearing at you on the pitch and stuff. Like there's a line, there is a line to be drawn um, with verbal abuse, and that is, and I think like don't get me wrong, physical abuse is a terrible thing, like an awful thing, and no one should have to go through it, let alone football referees. But I also think we need to bring awareness to verbal abuse as well. And I think we need to treat them both really with the same amount of weight, because the verbal abuse will probably quite often lead to physical abuse. And the other thing with physical abuse is physical abuse, you can see it. It exists, you've gone through it, it's physical, there's something tangible. But the verbal abuse that referees can go through, it can really play on the mind, and it can settle in a lot later. It can very much affect your confidence, and it can almost be almost more insidious, because you can't almost pin what it is that's offended you about what's being said to you. And I think the two are very closely related. So I remember being on the line at Thurrock FC. So I'm doing quite a high level here, and that was the worst verbal abuse I ever received. And that was like, people were telling me what, like, there was two fans behind me, and for no reason at all, other than the fact I was the referee. Like, I'd given basically no decisions, and it was just the fact that I was there in front of them holding a flag, and the amount of abuse they gave me. They were saying things about what they were doing to my fiance whilst I was refereeing, to my mum, all kinds of really terrible things, and it was awful. And I raised it with the referee at the end of the game, and he kind of brushed it under the carpet, sadly, because he was like, I don't want to put in a report. And the reason he didn't, and I understand why he didn't, is because he puts in a report about something like that, then obviously next time he comes around to that club, his club marks are going to suffer. It's going to affect his promotion, and therefore we, and on that day, I feel like we didn't actually do what was the best thing for football, which I was very sad about, because I said I really think we should report this as verbal abuse, because it was pretty bad and it was pretty horrific. And I have quite a high tolerance. I really,
I
really
mean,
do.
I have a real issue about the lack of respect towards officials in football, and I'm afraid to say that I think because people see on the TV how professional players speak and deal with professional referees, that grassroots people think it's totally acceptable. And I think the for me the big contrast is with rugby, where it's the complete opposite. There's total respect for the referee. Verbal abuse towards a referee is results in sanctions and penalties, and I can't help but feel that we're just too lax in football, and it's just accepted as being part of the game that referees are going to be abused.
Yeah. I, it's a really hard topic, because I think I like, I love rugby. I was a season ticket holder at Saracens for like many, many years. And, I've watched England play many times. Even here, I saw them beat Australia, which was awesome. And I am a huge fan of rugby union. One of the bigger differences is rugby union just attracts a different type of person. Um, and that is both to its credit and also to its non-credit. What's the word? It works against it, because you then don't get a good variety of people. You don't get a big talent pool to work from. Whereas football is everybody's game. Football is the working man's game. Football, you hear all these things. Football, everyone feels like they own football, and that's what the problem really is. It's we all feel like we know football so well because we've grown up with it. We understand it. You know, everyone who plays football thinks they know everything they need to know about football. Everyone's a pundit. Everyone's a manager. Everyone's a player. Everyone has better ideas than the people who are actually in charge. And because of that, they feel like they have a key ownership of the game. And that key ownership of the game is what results in these kinds of problems, is the fact that people get so passionate about it because they feel like it is their be all and end all. They feel like,
But
go on.
but this is a really big issue, because I know we just started off this conversation talking about physical abuse. We'll come back to that in a moment, but verbal abuse is a problem as well. But
Mm,
referee numbers are really suffering in the UK. I
yeah,
mean, I read a report at the beginning of this year that said in the 5-year period between 2017 and January of this year, grassroots referee numbers in the UK, I think, went down from 33,000 to 23,000. It's like a
yeah,
drop of one third.
yeah.
And we all know how clubs frequently tell us they have real problems getting hold of referees. And it's a bit of a vicious circle, because until clubs begin to understand why people are leaving the game because they're
Yep.
being verbally abused, assaulted,
Yep.
it's this problem's just going to get worse.
Yeah. And
Um,
and in many ways, maybe the only thing that's going to stop it is football has to stop because there's no referees. And at some point, someone will understand. The problem is you know, like a club's desperate for a referee. They scrape the barrel, they find one, and then all they do is spend 90 minutes abusing that guy. And you've got maybe not as good a referee for the level you're playing at, because all the referees you've already abused, they don't want to come out on a Sunday morning at 10:30 in the morning.
well, I mean,
You know?
I can speak about that, because I remember being asked to go and referee a youth game, and we're talking like 10, 11 year olds,
Yeah.
in a sort of nice part of southeast London. And the irony was, all the parents are stood behind respect barriers, because everybody signed up to the FA's respect campaign.
Yeah, but they're still
But
verbally
the
abusing you.
abuse
Yeah.
I got from the parents
Yeah.
was incredible.
Yeah.
And the problem then is the kids hear their parents shouting that,
And they think it's
they think they
acceptable.
can do the same.
Yeah.
And I'll be
But then
honest with you, I did that one game and I never did youth football again,
no.
because I thought, I'm not doing this for money. I've driven across sort of southeast London to get paid, a small amount of money because I enjoy
£30. Yeah.
football, and I'm not coming back. And that
Yeah.
was the end. That was the end of my experience of youth football.
Yeah. I mean, I generally, for me, youth football's been okay. I had one awful incident in a youth game that I took to SXFA, and they came down on my side with it. And that was I heard a coach or a manager, I wasn't sure who it was, but I definitely heard it. He threatened to kick a ball at a child's head. So what happened is the ball was out for a throw, but it came back into play. And this little boy, must have been 10, 12, I can't remember. He went to return the ball to the touchline so play could carry on, and he's just hit it too hard. He's just not aware of his own strength, and the ball's come at him with a bit of pace on it, and it's just flung back. And I think it kind of flew out towards like the touchline where there was a group of spectators, and I think it nearly hit the coach's like mum's head or something like that. And he screamed at the top of his voice, "You do that again, I'm going to kick the ball into your head," or something like that, words to that effect. So I stopped play. I walked over to both of them. I went, "Whichever one of you said that, you can go for a walk. And I don't want to see you anywhere near this pitch again. And if neither of you do it, I'm just abandoning the game." And this was like a semi-final or something. And they didn't want it to be abandoned. And they stood there and fought with me for about 10 minutes. And I just looked at them, and I was clear as day. And I just went, "This game is not taking place until one of you removes yourself." And I suggest it was whoever made that comment. And I had to stand there, and I had to listen to the abuse they were hurling at me. I had to also, the spectators were saying I was the problem for stopping the game and putting my foot down in that situation. So like all the fans of this particular club, they were like, "Ref, just get on with the game. Just get on with the game. What's the matter with you? It doesn't matter." I'm like, no, it really does matter. I'm not having threats of violence. I'm not having threats of violence towards children on a football field. I'm sorry, this is a sport. What do you think this is? And he eventually did remove himself. And then as he was walking off, he obviously threatened to beat me up in the car park after. None of which happened, obviously, but still. And then I took that to the FA, and the FA punished him pretty heavily.
But I mean, this is the problem is that lots of sort of young people start their refereeing career, understandably,
Of
doing youth
course,
football
exactly.
because they think it's going to be a better, safer, kinder environment where you can learn
Absolutely.
your skills. And I can imagine some young people who aren't particularly robust going along think it's going to be quite a pleasant experience. Well, experience like that and just never ever referee again.
If I wasn't 26, 27 years old when that happened, if I was, to be fair, maybe if I was 18, I might have turned around and punched him in the face myself. But which I don't condone, by the way. But, you know, if I was younger, if I was 16, 17, 15, I might not have ever gone back to the football field again. And you could argue that, you know, if I was 15, 16, 17, he wouldn't have reacted that way to me putting my foot down. He might not have, but he might have acted worse. Or even just the sheer fact that there's someone there in charge of children who's threatening to kick balls at people's heads. Like, the whole situation was just ridiculous. And then, you know, that's the whole verbal abuse thing. Physical abuse. You don't get many referees who would sit on a podcast like this, or would you could ask many referees, have you ever been physically abused on the football field? And they will say no. And the reason for that, like, you could probably ask that 22,000 referees there are, and I reckon maybe 5 or 10 of them will probably say yes. And the reason for that is the second you get physically abused, you stop refereeing. And people don't carry on once something like that happens. You know, what happened to me, I was over at, I want to say Hackney Marshes, but it wasn't Hackney Marshes. It was another set of fields that have just as bad a reputation. And there was this right back for this team. I can't remember what league I was on. And he had his 3-year-old, or like he had a little child on the touchline, and he was trying to play the game and trying to be a parent at the same time, which is a very stressful situation. And the whole game, I was like really understanding with him. You know, I was like, dude, like, you know, you can go and sort your child out. It's fine. Just don't jump on and off the pitch too much. Always come on, look for, you know, get my signal and stuff and things like that. Anyway, this kept going on and on and on and on. And then it was the most, and this is the other thing as well, it was the most ridiculous decision. Like, it was a throw-in, and I asked him to take it 10 meters back. Like, I wanted the throw-in to be taken where the throw-in went out of play. And he just lost it. Absolutely lost it. Like, went off his head at me verbally. So it always starts with verbal abuse, lots of verbal abuse. And then I obviously sent him off. He went off, he took his shirt off, and then run back onto the field and went, I'm not wearing a shirt now. You can't do anything. You can't do anything to me. I've not got a shirt on. And just with the full force of God, pushed me over. I went flying. Obviously, then I don't really know what happened. He was calling me a racist. He was calling me all kinds of things. I seem to remember, like, the clubs kind of split it all up, but then members from his own team kind of turned on me a little bit and started calling me a racist, all because I asked him to take a throw-in where it went out of play. And then the other team gave me like an 11-man escort to my car and just went, just get in the car and go. And one of those was a policeman, and he was just talking to me and just kind of looking after me a little bit as I was getting into my car. I went home. The first thing I did was I called a different league, a league that I originally wanted to get on. So this was in like my first season as a football referee. So I called up a man called John Corson, who is the referee secretary. I'm not sure if he still is, but he was back then, the referee secretary of the Brentwood Sunday League. And I called him and I went, John, I was trying to get hold of you to join your league, but I couldn't. And I really want to. And this has just happened to me. So can I come and referee on the Brentwood Sunday League? Because I wanted to go to that side of like Essex as opposed to the other side of Essex, that this other league, I think it was like it's like the East London District League or something. They were sending me kind of to inner East London, which obviously, like, just I knew the way I wouldn't get on very well refereeing in that part of London. And so he said, yep. He sent me the forms. He got me signed up. He gave me a game the next week. And then obviously we dealt with all the discipline after, and he kind of advised me what to do with the other league. And that was that. I mean, if I hadn't have picked up the phone and had that other league to go to, knowing that I'd have felt a lot safer there, I may not be doing this podcast now. I don't know. But it was it was a horrific situation.
I don't know how they define abuse, but the University of Portsmouth did some research, and they found that 93% of referees have been abused whilst being a referee,
Yeah, don't
which I mean, I
surprise me.
think is just a shocking statistic. And what was interesting was that their research found that the problem seemed to be much more acute in England, and they found that other European countries had a much lesser problem. And they gave an example of how the level of abuse suffered by Dutch referees was just over half, 51% or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
But I mean, I've never had actual physical violence, but I mean, I've had threats that they were going to meet me at my car and break my legs and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Which quite frankly is just absurd. That
What it
there
is.
you are going out to referee to allow a match to be effective, and people are threatening you with acts of violence. And again, I think had it not been for the fact that I'm 50 years of age and
Long enough in the
pretty
tooth.
and
Yeah.
seen a lot of things through work that I was able to deal with it. But again, I think anybody starting out their career having to endure that would probably never go back. But
And rightly so. Rightly so. And that's something I used to say, like, just as a bit of advice to people who are listening to this conversation. When people used to F and blind at me and swear at me and things like that, I used to say to them, especially on the Sunday leagues, I'd look at them, I'd go, dude, shut up. And they'd be like, what? I'd be like, you can't talk to me like that, or please stop talking to me like that. And they'd be like, I'll say what I want. I'm like, no, you can't. I'm at work. Like, I don't deserve to be abused while I'm at work. So can you please stop abusing me whilst I'm at work? I'm like, how do you like, I'd have this conversation. I'd be like, what do you do for work? They'd be like, oh, I'm a builder. I'd be like, well, how would you like it if I just walked up to your work site and just started calling you all these names because you was laying cement? And he was like, I was like, exactly. I'm at work. Leave me alone. Let me do my job. And like that kind of reasoning works sometimes. I can't say it worked all the time, but it's a strategy you can like put up your sleeve to hopefully help you figure that out. The whole thing with parents is a whole other thing. Like if you're gonna do, I'd say if you're gonna do youth football, try your damnedest to not do local youth football and just get into like football league youth football, get into proper structured youth football, because the behavior of parents is like they're literally not allowed to say a word to anybody. Like get into doing academy games, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're screaming out for referees in those places. You might think, well, I'll never get to referee the West Ham Academy. You'd be amazed. If you can find the right person to talk to, just contact the club, be like, where do you get your referees from? Whatever. And, I used to do a lot of Leyton Orient academies. I've done the West Ham Academy. I've done Premier League Academy tournaments. And the parents are as good as gold, because if they say a word, the team gets such a fine. Like their player their child gets stopped from playing. Like it's really quite serious.
Well, I think some of our future friends and guests for future podcasts do academy football in England, so they might be able to give us an insight into what that's like and how to get into it. But anyway, so I just wanted to cover that really, because it's sort of as you'd expect, got a lot of reaction on social media, and it's brought it all out again. I'll be interested to see if there's any further response from the FA. But I think people should get in touch with us if they've had any examples themselves or instances of being a victim of physical or verbal abuse. Be interesting to hear other people's stories.
It would.
But there we go. That was the news.
And also it'd be interesting to, hopefully help advise people, or it'd be really interesting to, see if it ended someone's career. And they think, how do you come back from it? How do you recover from it? You might, getting back onto the field is scary. You might be worried about things. I'm living proof that it's not the be all and end all. You can come back from it, and it probably made me a better referee. It probably made me a bit stronger, a bit more solid. But it wasn't a nice experience. Don't get me wrong, and I don't wish it upon anyone. And I genuinely don't think anyone should have to go through it at all. And if you have gone through it, then make sure, if it happens in your game this weekend or next weekend or whenever you're listening to this, make sure you report anything.
Yeah,
anything. Absolutely. Because if you don't report it, you're making it so much worse for the next person.
And I'd like to think people reporting it at the moment would get the full backing of the FA,
so.
Because the problem about referee numbers is a really serious one, and I think they're bound to take your complaint seriously. But there we go.
There we go.
Perhaps the cheeriest of subjects to begin.
No,
podcast number 4, but an important one nonetheless.
Should we crack a joke?
No.
Okay.
Should we deal with law number 4?
Oh, before we do that, let's bring the energy up a little bit. So, do you remember the young gentleman from the last podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, who asked us about, I can't remember what he asked us about now. Oh, it was about the red card incident.
Yeah.
He messaged me on Facebook and he said, I was the young lad who emailed about the dilemma I had with the club linesman. I just wanted to say thank you so much for answering my question, and your answer gave me an absolute ton of confidence. And then he went on to say, he updated me on how his fixtures went like last weekend. He said he took into account everything I said and trusted his instincts a lot more. It paid off on the first game in the middle. He did a send-off for serious foul play, resulting in a player breaking his leg in 3 players. So he got that one right, which is brilliant. And then second one in the middle, no sending off or cautions, as players were well behaved, final game of the day. But he said it all couldn't have gone better. You've really helped me gain a lot of confidence as a referee. Thank you. Which is lovely. And then I know. And then I've had some other feedback as well. I had 2 people follow me on Instagram who have listened to the podcast. See, we're reaching the echelons. And one of them was a lady referee, which is awesome, and she's quite new to refereeing, I think. She was like, she's found out about my podcast, and it's safe to say I love it. I'm new to refereeing, and I found it very helpful and interesting. Unfortunately, she's a West Ham fan, but we can't worry about that too much. And then a football league linesman as well. He's followed me, and he said similar things, that he likes the podcast and stuff. So we're touching the greats.
Well, it's always nice to, first of all, hear that people are listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes I think we're sat here talking to ourselves.
No, not at all. People really are listening. I've got the stats.
I share them with you daily. Not just in the UK. All over the world.
We want to be number 1 in Malawi. If we can become number 1 in Malawi, we've made it.
But no, it's impressive. We're sort of doing well in terms of footballing podcasts in the UK, but we've got listeners from a whole host of different countries, which is
Fiji,
very exciting.
Namibia, Armenia, Iceland, New Zealand. I didn't even know you played soccer in New Zealand. United Kingdom, Australia. I knew. Of course, I do. It's good. Number 1 in Malawi. That's the goal.
Well, thank you very much to those of you who are listening, and
continue
please remember, if you are listening, to review us and give us a 5-star review on whichever platform you listen to your podcasts.
Oh, but actually,
share the good news.
I'd prefer you to follow me on Instagram and send me a message, because I'm a narcissist. And I would also prefer you to share it with somebody else who might find it helpful. I think that's more important than the reviews, but I'll take a review as well.
Yeah.
Just basically, just support it in every which way.
And tell your friends about us as well. So that'd be good, and get more listeners in that.
And we also need to thank a few people who shared the podcast too. There's a guy called the Referee Image who takes photos here. He shared it for us. And the guy who does the referee forum, Ant Canavan, he shared it for us. And I think that went a long way as well. So thank you so much to everyone who is sharing it. It means an awful lot.
Yeah. And again, I'm just going to plug again. Do follow us on Twitter, which is Red or Yellow Pod.
You said that with confidence.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to see if I can remember it. We're getting lots of traction on our Facebook page. So come and find us on Facebook by looking for Red or Yellow. We don't have an Instagram account yet, do we, Adam?
No, because I know I'd be responsible for running that, and I already run about 6, so I'm like holding off.
Anyways, there we go.
I'm already getting the warning that our meeting time's about to run over. We haven't even started the law yet. Let's go. Law 4.
Law number 4, which I think
is enthralling,
can be summarized in 2 words. And the 2 words are...
Wear the right shit. No, sorry.
Shin pads.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up. I hate shin pads. That's
law number 4 done. You've got to wear them. What's next week?
No, that is not true. Right. Okay.
It's almost true.
No, it's not. I have such an axe to grind about shin pads.
Oh, crikey.
Oh, yeah. You've really touched the nerve.
Right. Well, part 1 of law number 4 tells us that no player can use or wear anything that's going to be dangerous. And so that means that all items of jewelry must come off.
Including wedding rings.
Wedding rings,
nose rings,
bands, bracelets, earrings, necklaces, all must come off, all forbidden. And it's not acceptable to say, oh, I'm just going to put some tape around my wedding ring that ring has to come off or the player can't play. It's as simple as that.
Can I also say though, with that, if you're
I know what
refereeing
you're going to say.
vets football, that is very difficult, and some men just can't get the wedding ring off their fingers. um, uh, Although in this day and age, I mean, I suppose many footballers just hope divorces keep staying on the rise because then they don't have to worry about it at all, do they? But that's a terrible joke. But yeah, like to a degree, like I'm not gonna lie, I think we've all done it. We've all let players play with wedding rings on. They've put
Yeah,
tape on
I
it and
agree.
stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
you know, there's times to be militant about these things. The higher up you go in the football pyramid, when you start doing more important games, when you start doing games with assessors, stuff like that. This, especially in England, this player's equipment is really important. Assessors look at it
Yeah.
greatly because it's so easy to spot. And you know, we became, you know, the level I got to, we got really militant about it because it's easy. It's easy wins for you with your assessors, and so it's easy marks to get, and it's also easy marks to lose. So just get it right. And also, I find with players' equipment, it's a great pre-match moment to assert your authority, to let them know that you know what you're doing, you're in charge, you know what the laws are, you know the intricacies of the laws. And then those moments where you might need to be flexible, you can kind of use that to win players onto your side a little bit, which might make your next 90 minutes a bit easier. So obviously make sure they're safe. But
And if you do that pre-match, that should all be really good. But occasionally it happens that someone will come on and they've got an item, or you discover somebody's wearing an item, and what you simply do is you instruct them to remove the item. They have to leave the field of play at the next stoppage if they're unwilling or unable to comply. So you've got to get them to remove it straight away. And a player who refuses to comply must be cautioned.
And
if you can, again.
And if you can do it at stop and play, then do, obviously. But yeah, it can be frustrating. You know, those little studs in the inner ear. You know, like the respect handshake's always a great time to check all of that. I always do that. But by that point, it's a little bit too late. I always line up the clubs. Obviously, at my level, when you're working in stadiums, line up the clubs and I'll get my assistants to do a full check. And then I'll do a check as well. Just because it's much easier to deal with it there than it is on the pitch. It just looks messy on the pitch. And you don't want, you know, 21 players all hanging around waiting for one guy to try and get a bloody earring out that he can't get out and stuff like that. Yeah. So, and also in ladies football, it's really important as well. Earrings, jewelry, those kinds of things, bracelets, rings. They are obviously allowed to tie their hair back with a headband and stuff. But if they have, one thing I've noticed here is you get a lot of spare like headbands on wrists and stuff. Players come out with those now. So I'm always like, look, take it off. And they're like, well, what do I do? I'm like, just put it in your sock. Like, save it for later if you need it, but I don't want it on your wrist because I don't want someone's finger getting twisted in it, and then that would be horrific.
Now, part 2 is entitled compulsory equipment. And the strange thing about that is really, I mean, there's a long list of things, well, not long list, but there's a list of things. But again, it is summarized by shin pads, because shin pads are the only obligatory thing which you have to wear.
That's not true.
Alongside,
you have to wear a shirt, shorts, socks, footwear.
I know. But when was the last time you had a match where you had to abandon the game because 4 players weren't wearing shorts?
No, I haven't. I haven't.
I mean, it is a bit ridiculous because we all know you've got to have a shirt and shorts and socks, and footwear. And goalkeepers may wear tracky bottoms, which is the exemption that's granted to them.
They also, shin pads. Later on in the law, it says they're allowed to wear baseball caps as well, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Goalkeepers only. But can I just, on shin guards, can I, like, when is IFAB, and as we established because of your fun corner the other week, basically when is England, the FA, going to turn around and say shin pads must cover a minimum amount of the shin? Because at the minute I'm getting lads who are 6'7" who are wearing shin pads that are the size of my little finger, and it is ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. This is a problem because shin pads, as people know, if ever bought them, come in all shapes and sizes. Some are very big and protect the entirety of the shin, and often have an attachment protecting the ankle as well. And then you'll find a number of particularly strikers wearing shin pads which are very small, light, and don't really cover a great deal of the shin at all. But
and players might turn around and say, oh, you know, it's my responsibility, but it's actually not. right? I've had in my career, I've probably had 4 or 5 ambulances come to a football pitch. I've definitely had 2 or 3 broken legs on football pitches. And I'd say a good 80% of those probably would have been avoided if proper shin pads were being worn. Like, I
Oh,
mean,
we'll
like
come back to that later on
full
because I've been
size shin
looking some
pads.
research
Good.
about what protection shin pads give you. But no,
Right, okay.
I agree. But all it says in the laws is they must be made of a suitable material to provide reasonable protection and be covered by the socks. That's
Plastic.
all the stipulation.
I know it's very, and that's the other thing as well. It must be covered by the sock. Like players, very often they just let their socks dangle over like under the, that annoys me. Anyway, you can tell I have a lot of gripes with this law, can't you?
But I think that's all it is about part 2 of players' equipment. Shin pads is, I think, is
yeah.
key.
Yeah.
And I've got some fun facts about shin pads later on.
Wait,
so we'll
it
come back
doesn't
to
say
that later.
goalkeepers are allowed to wear gloves. It doesn't actually say that in the laws. Because goalkeepers can play without gloves, can't they?
They can.
There we go.
Like I said, shin pads are the only obligatory protective item that footballers must wear.
Correct. Colours.
Well, I mean, I think this can be dealt with pretty quickly, doesn't it? I mean, teams obviously have to have
clash.
Colours that don't clash. Goalkeepers must wear colours that are distinguishable from other players and the match officials. And if 2 goalkeeper shirts are the same colour, neither's another shirt, the referee allows the match to be played. Well, that's really just common sense.
Undershirts.
I don't know, but undershirts. What this? I mean, I think this is more. I think it's less of a grassroots problem,
correct,
than it is at perhaps your level and above, which is undershirts are meant to be a single colour matching the main colour of the shirt sleeve or replicating any pattern that's on the shirt sleeve.
And this one causes all kinds of problems, the undershorts.
Yeah, well, undershorts must be the same colour as the main colour of the shorts or the lowest part of the shorts. And players of the same team must wear the same colour.
Yes. That's true of undershirts and of... oh, no, it's not true of undershirts, is it?
No.
Isn't that weird? So they all have to wear the same colour undershorts, but not the same colour undershirts.
I guess it's implied if you're saying that everybody wearing an undershirt has to match the colour of the sleeve. It should be the same, shouldn't it? But
yeah, okay. Yeah, but still, I mean, the joy with undershorts is you can just tell them to roll them up so you don't see them. As long as you don't see them, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean,
which is a lot more difficult with undershirts.
I mean, I'm not doing matches where you're assessed, so I'm not really remotely bothered by these sorts of issues. But if you're being assessed, then these are things that you'd be picked up on, I would assume.
Absolutely.
That you get marked down if you're not making sure the laws are being complied with. So that's subsection 3. Subsection
equipment.
Section 4 is so basically kind of any head covering. Apart from, well, it says you can have headgear such as face masks, knee and arm protectors, but they've got to be made of a soft, lightweight, padded material. And people are also able to wear goalkeepers are able to wear goalkeepers caps and sports spectacles.
Edgar Davids.
Exactly, Edgar Davids is a prime example.
It's amazing you don't get more players wearing sports spectacles, isn't it? They must wear contacts.
I guess people just prefer to wear contact lenses because it's just a bit easier, really, isn't it? It's a bit, I don't know, just being a bit difficult wearing glasses on a pitch. But
it didn't hurt Edgar.
Didn't really see many people wearing them.
No, and it didn't hurt Edgar Davids. He was phenomenal until he became a manager. Well, he became manager at Barnet, didn't he?
It was something like that. It was certainly sort of North London way. It didn't go very well, though, did it? It was fairly short. He was player manager as well, wasn't he?
Probably.
Yeah. So head covers. Where head covers are worn, they must be black, all the same main colour as the shirt, and players of the same team must wear the same colour. Not be attached to the shirt, not to be dangerous to the player wearing it, and not to have any parts extending out. I can't work out what the head cover bit's all about. Is that just for goalkeepers?
No, it's about religion, isn't it? It's if Sikhs want to play football, or it's if devout Muslim people want to play football. And
I was thinking about Petr Cech and his sort of
Orthodox Jews wear their kippur. I don't know, but it's a point of head coverings for religious reasons, and obviously, yeah, for I imagine concussion protection. That as well. Obviously, yeah, Peter Cech is the most famous example of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you know, it's sometimes it's hard to forget that football is a global game. Like it's played in Iraq, it's played in Iran, it's played, you know, in the Middle East and with Arabs and stuff. And so, you know, like they probably have all kinds of different nuances that need covering in the laws of the game compared to, you know, us Caucasian. Well, I'm Christian, but I'm not sure if you are. You're Catholic, aren't you? You're not Christian.
Yeah.
You're Catholic. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. You know, so
I've never really had an issue about anybody wanting to wear any head coverings at all in any match I've refereed.
I think I've seen it a bit more often in women's football, like young Asian girls. Like they obviously cover their heads sometimes, like their ponytails and stuff, don't they? Like they have like sometimes have a bun on top and they wear something on their head for that. I feel a bit embarrassed that my knowledge doesn't exactly know what it is, but I've seen it there a few times, which is fine. But yeah, generally it's not a big deal because obviously it might affect the way you head the ball and stuff. So yeah, but you know, yeah, that's what it's there for.
And then we go on.
No, I was going to say, have you ever had issues with things like this, like people wearing jumpers under shirts and all that kind of stuff?
No.
Do you want to hear a really funny story? Oh yeah, I had one this season. So I was referee. I can't remember what team it was. Oh, it was ridiculous. It was a Romanian fella here in Australia, and he came out.
People do travel, by the way, around the world.
No, that's not the funny bit. No,
you seem to be somewhat taken aback by someone from Romania was in Australia.
How'd you get from Bucharest to the Gold Coast?
We live in a sort of globe where people travel and live and work abroad.
All right, will you stop patronizing me? No, the fact he's Romanian is important for like the payoff at the end of the story. Let me craft the story. Okay. I'm an entertainer. So this gentleman who happened to be from Romania, is that okay, Edward? So second half of the game, he came out wearing a zip-up jumper under his football shirt. And like, I saw him and I was like, dude, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm cold. I'm like, you're Romanian. How can you be cold in Australia? That was the payoff. See, now you took it away and it's not as funny. And I had to get him to remove the jumper that he put on at halftime under his shirt because it had a zip on it. And I think it had a hood on it. He looked like, when people go to rugby games and stuff like that, or go to football games and they wear like 5 layers underneath their team shirt.
Yeah.
He looked a bit like that. He looked a bit like a walking rugby ball as opposed to somebody who was about to play football.
Presumably there's nothing wrong with people wearing items of clothing under their football shirts which aren't visible beyond the outline of their shirt and which don't have things like zips on them. So that's why people wear Under Armour.
You
don't see. So
I'd have no issue with Under Armour, but he was wearing, it was a zipped hoodie that clearly was too big for the way in which he was wearing it. And the other scary thing about that is he said to me, "You're the first referee this season to tell me to take that off." Of which I died a little bit inside. And the other thing as well, I had a goalkeeper wearing a snood in Australia.
There's no provisions for the wearing of snoods, is there, in the laws?
No, they did used to say, I believe, snoods are not allowed. Like they actually reference snoods, but you don't want something around your neck that can't come off easily, because if someone pulls it, you're going to choke and die. So just don't wear snoods, please.
And the last part of section 4 is, can we delve very quickly, because you can't. I
really thought that was going to be funny, that story.
Yeah.
No, I'm sad.
Funny how things don't quite sound like funny when they're actually said out loud. Electronic communication. So this is all about, you see professionals, when they take their tops off, look like they're wearing some sort of like bra. And what it is, it's just an electronic performance and tracking system, which is basically like a GPS chip that they wear in their back that they can then use for analysis after the game. So it's really only for the elite game, but those are permissible, provided they can't see it and they don't present any danger.
But it also, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say they come under requirements for that FIFA have in place for wearable electronic performance and tracking systems.
Yeah, but it also says here under electronic communication that players, including substitutes, and send-off players, are not permitted to wear or use any form of electronic communication equipment except EPTS, which is the performance stuff. So this basically means you're not allowed people to communicate with the bench electronically. So they're not allowed to have an earpiece in, they're not allowed to have a microphone or anything like that. In order to, like, like in American football where like the quarterback is kind of mic'd up to the the benches and stuff. You're not allowed that in football at all. So no communications electronically is allowed to take place. Other than maybe like a physio or someone who might come on, and that's just for ease of communication. They might use a walkie-talkie type thing. Slogans, statements, images, and advertising.
Well, this I think we can do really quickly because I don't think it's really going to affect many grassroots referees or even most sort of referees at a high level.
There's a couple of famous examples of this law, though, isn't there? Do you remember Mario Balotelli?
But they're like they're at the sort of professional level. So basically, football always prides itself on being an apolitical, a-religious sport, and so you're not allowed to display anything which is political message, religious, personal slogans, statements, or images, or advertising other than the manufacturer's logo. And I mean that really,
and sponsorships.
Yeah.
So you had Mario Balotelli, didn't you? Why Always Me? He got booked for that, I believe, if memory serves me right. But then another one, Billy Sharp. Do you remember the Sheffield United centre forward?
I don't, because I was actually just thinking of the other occasion, which was it Christian Bentner, who
the Arsenal player?
Yeah, didn't he lift up his shirt to reveal
a sponsor? It was a sponsor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He got in a lot of trouble for that.
Yeah.
So Billy Sharp, I think he had a stillbirth. It was a very sad story, or a very young child of his passed away. It was some kind of tragic story like that. And he scored a goal like the weekend of the week it all happened, and he lifted his shirt just to say in honor of, or whatever it was, for his child. And I think the referee didn't book him quite rightly. And this is like a point of law, like empathy for the game and the people within the game compared to necessarily being dictatorial about the laws. It is, sometimes you just have to trust your better judgment, despite what the consequences might be in terms of what assessors or the FA might say about stuff. Like, to book a player for that kind of incident, which is never going to happen on the field, right? But still, that's just one of those things. Just two interesting moments of.
And wasn't Guardiola being repeatedly fined recently because he was wearing a sort of badge in relation to Basque independence or something of that sort? He kept being fined and kept saying he was going to keep on wearing it, but that was because of this law where no political things at all. So that's pretty straightforward. And then we've come on to the last part, which is subsection 6, which is offences and sanctions. And for any offence, play needs to be stopped. The player is instructed to leave the field, correct the equipment, leaves when play stops and the equipment has already been corrected. And the player who leaves the field of play to correct or change equipment must have the equipment checked by a match official before being allowed to re-enter. Well, grassroots, that's going to be the referee, and only re-enter with the referee's permission. And a player who enters without permission,
which may be given during play. That's quite important. Yep.
And a player who enters without permission must be cautioned. And this tells you that if you're stopping the game, it restarts with an indirect free kick.
There we go. Because no contact has taken place, so it's an indirect free kick. Lovely.
So well, there it is.
Interesting.
Shin pads.
Shin
as
pads.
I said at the outset, is really.
Did you said this law can be summed up by 2 words?
Yeah.
Didn't you? And you're a lawyer, aren't you? I just want this on record. You're a lawyer. You're an intelligent man. Do you have a degree? You have a law degree?
I hope I've got a degree. Otherwise, things have gone wrong somewhere.
Throughout the entire law, shin pads is written as 1 word.
It is. Although interestingly, I'm Googling as we speak. And Nike on their website.
I trust IFAB over Nike.
Pads.
Shin space pads.
I don't think shin pads is all one word. I'll be entirely honest with you.
Fair enough.
But now you sought to humiliate me and to criticise my lack of knowledge.
Well, you denigrated my story about the Romanian.
I'm just going to have a little look, see if I can find an answer for you. Two
This
separate
is-
words
this is
from
great
the
radio.
Oxford Dictionary, Adam. Shin
Okay.
pads.
Yeah, that's Oxford. What about the Cambridge Dictionary? You know, for
Yeah,
socialists.
Listen, don't be a sore loser. So, only leaves time now for my fun facts. And have you got a jingle for us yet?
I haven't. I need to do one, don't I? I'm sorry.
I give you one job and you don't come up with a jingle.
Why don't we send it out to the listeners? If you could come up with a jingle for Ed's fun facts, I 100% promise I will edit it in. I promise.
So, my fun facts really are all to do with shin pads, which I know you're going to be very excited about.
One word or 2 words?
2 words. So, when is the first recorded use of shin pads in football, Adam? We like this game.
You like it because I'm crap.
See how wildly out Adam is on his guesses.
19?
No.
Really? 18? 1846?
No. So 1874.
I was close.
There was a chap called Sam Wellow Widdowson,
Wow.
who was, this is what's quite interesting, was a cricket player for Nottinghamshire, but also played for Nottingham Forest.
Right.
And cricketers had been using shin pads, I think, for quite a while before then. I think cricket was the first sport to use protective equipment.
Right.
And so Sam Weller Widdowson decided to cut down a pair of his cricket pads, strap them to the outside of his socks, and to use them to protect his shins. That's the first recorded use of shin pads.
How interesting.
What I found really interesting, what year do you think it was that FIFA made the wearing of shin pads obligatory? This blew me away.
All right, so that means it must be quite late. It normally revolves around a World Cup. Am I right with that? Because last time it was for this World Cup.
It revolves around a World Cup.
Okay.
Correct.
So you had, what do we have? Mexico 86. What was the one before that? I'm going to go for the one before Mexico 86. So that would have been 82, whatever that was.
You went the wrong way.
No, really? I was so close. Italian 90.
1990 was when FIFA made it obligatory to wear shin pads. I was astonished by that because, I remember playing football in the 70s where you wouldn't be allowed to play football without shin pads on, but it wasn't a FIFA law rather. So 1990. What was the other fun fact I was going to tell you about? So I've read quite a bit of research online this week about what protection shin pads give to you.
Wow, honestly, that broken collarbone's really affected your week, hasn't it?
I had a bit of time on my hands. What percentage of footballing injuries would you say are from the related to the lower part of the body in football, Adam? What percentage?
73.
82.9% of injuries are related to.
I was going to go a bit higher, but then I thought, you only asking if it was, okay.
And what percentage of those injuries are result in fractures?
Fractures of the shin bone or just lower limb?
Fractures of bones.
Of bones. Oh, all bones? Yeah. All body bones? Yeah. Okay.
All body bones. There's a range.
Should we go with Bruce Forsyth? Is it higher or lower than 82?
No. Listen to the question. What percentage of injuries result in fractures?
Oh yeah, but no. I mean, is it higher or lower than the last
How many times you call in the ambulance to your pitches? Oh, is Adam refereeing?
5.
We'll have one standing by. It is
56%.
Honestly, I despair sometimes. So fractures represent between, you don't get many fractures in football. So they represent between 2 to 11% of all injuries in football. Yeah, 2 to 11%. I think that's still quite high, personally.
Well,
2 to 11%.
I
of
suppose what of all injuries in
resulting
football?
fractures.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes more sense.
yeah.
I thought we were still treading down the path of shins and shin pads and okay. Yeah, okay, that is
And
quite high, but no, I think that's probably fair.
of the fractures that have happened in football, what percentage of fractures relate to the lower limbs?
Or can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Of all fractures that
Yep,
happen during football, what
yep.
percentage are related to the lower limbs?
98.
See, I'd have guessed something pretty high as well, but it's quite low. It's 30 to 33% of fractures relate to.
Right.
So you got to remember we're talking about, fingers, elbows,
Yeah. I'm
arms.
thinking I've seen a few broken collarbones and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I've
So
seen a few smashed
um
teeth.
and the other interesting fact is everybody's assumption is the purpose behind shin pads is to prevent people getting fractures. But in fact, the standard to which shin pads actually made, certainly in UK, is called the British Standard Euro norm. And their purpose is to prevent lacerations, contusions, and punctures. So they're not actually
To stop
designed to prevent
breakages.
fractures. As a matter of fact, they do help prevent fractures because research has shown that the purpose of a shin pad is you get a point of contact, but the shin pad displaces the energy around the shin pad. So it kind of like takes the force out of the focal point and
Yes, that makes
stops
sense.
people from getting
Spreads it. Yep.
their injury, which is why having a small shin pad is probably much less
Good.
effective than having a bigger shin pad.
Yep.
And so it's not actually designed to prevent fractures. And in fact, research has shown that a strong tackle will, break your tibia whether you've got a shin pad or not.
Yeah.
In reality,
Yeah.
because that's not the purpose. And the final, it's not particularly fun fact, is it? Because these are sort of facts about shin pads, and they're not particularly fun. But
No, but they are interesting. Like if you get into an argument with someone about wearing shin pads or not, you can,
yeah, no,
you
it's
can,
interesting.
you
to
go,
know
well,
this-
look, listen to
facts and
these
figures.
stats, and then they'll be like, okay, I'll put them on. There you go.
And there's been research done because at the moment most of the manufacturers use particular types of materials, but the best material that you can use, which don't feature in those, is carbon. Carbon is the best protector, and so I think some professionals have specially made carbon shin pads, which then have padding in them. But for the vast majority, the average player who's going out and buying shin pads, they're made of some sort of plastic or some sort of engineered material. So the long and short of all that is that you must wear them, and they might prevent you from getting serious injury. That's the whole purpose behind them. So there we go. Those are my fun facts this week.
Have you ever had some people trying to get around the shin pad law in your games?
Yeah, that's because I mean, inevitably there are people who turn up and haven't got shin pads, and I'm afraid to say the bottom line is
they
that
don't play.
they don't play.
They do
I
not
mean,
play.
You might be prepared to have someone wrap up their wedding ring so that people can play a game of football, but when it comes to preventing injury, things like that, shin pads, I'm afraid to say, are deal breaker.
Also, if you let a player play without shin pads and something happens to him, then you have very little ground to stand on. Added to that, well, I don't want to get into that conversation again. But added to that as well, I've had players try and stuff newspapers down their socks and use those as shin pads. Oh, the joys of Essex. So yeah, and I just looked at them and went, "Are you serious?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Just go away."
And my parting shot is going to be, having Googled, is shin pads one word? The Collins Dictionary says shin, separate word, pad. It's a thick piece of material that you wear inside your socks to protect the lower part of your leg when you're playing a game such as football.
But really, we've established it should be to spread the impact of the force, not necessarily to protect only. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
well,
exactly.
There you go. Right.
So there we go. So next week, Adam.
What is law
Edward? Number 4? Well, maybe not next week.
Is it number 5? Isn't it number 5?
Number 5. Sorry,
it's the authority of the referee.
It is.
Oh, shall I do like a proper cinematic voice for that one next week? Welcome to Red or Yellow, the authority of the referee.
How are we going to demonstrate the referee signals when we only have the medium of audio?
Well,
you're going to have to be descriptive.
Why do I have to be descriptive? You don't like my stories.
Because you're the artiste.
Am I, darling? I'm an actor, don't you know?
Exactly.
I set myself the challenge before we recorded this to get that in somewhere today. I'm glad I did it. There are no signals on law 5.
Yes,
I'm looking at
are.
it. Okay. I'm not looking at it well enough.
Oh, no, that's law 6. Referee signals gets its own law.
Yes, absolutely it does. Because
blimey.
it needs to be done properly, Edward.
That's going to be a thrilling episode.
So this can be summed up with 2 words. Watch YouTube.
Adam is standing with one arm directly above his head in a vertical line by his ear.
Right, let's not give away our great content, otherwise people won't tune in 2 weeks' time. So
it won't be 2 weeks' time because I'm going to be on holiday in 2 weeks' time. So
lucky
either got to record it next week,
okay,
or want to get back.
Well, no, we've got to do authority of the referee first. So
yeah, no, but I mean, you'll have to do our next recording either next week.
I better ask the question that every single referee is now wondering. Who listens to this? Where are you going on holiday, Edward?
I'm going to Miami.
Oh, that would be fun. Are you watching the Dolphins play?
No, not watch the Dolphins play. I'm going on a short cruise out of Miami for a few days.
Nice.
Heading down to Key West and that sort of thing.
You know, there's a Miami on the Gold Coast.
I did know there's a Miami on the Gold Coast. Yeah,
confused.
There's a Hollywood on the Gold Coast as well, isn't there?
No.
You sure?
I'm certain. I don't know. I don't think there is.
Week.
Okay. Oh god. Here we go. Another reason Adam was wrong. I should really just stick to refereeing, shouldn't I? Refereeing and acting, darling. Oh, and personal training.
All right. This is not a vehicle for you to advertise.
It's always a vehicle for me to advertise.
So, right. There we go. Because it's not late here, but it's early there. And
yeah, I've got a coffee date. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for following us, everybody. Like always, if you have any questions, if you need any help with anything, just like, that young lad did the other week, please send it over to us. And I'm not sure if we said that we hope the guy gets well who got attacked as a referee. And obviously,
you're right.
We wish him a speedy recovery.
A speedy recovery, and let's hope that he that's not the end of his refereeing career. But speedy recovery to him.
And if you need to talk to us about any kind of issues that we spoke about at the start of this podcast, then we're very welcoming people, so please feel free to message us
a shout
and we'll get back to you, and we'll try and help and advise in the best way we can, for sure.
Great. We'll have a lovely week,
and
thanks everyone for listening.
Ciao,
bye
bye.
Thank you for making it to the end of another episode of Red or Yellow. You're clearly a very fit listener. May I gently remind you to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Tell all your friends. And don't forget to please share it with any refereeing groups that you may have. Good luck on the fields out there this week. And if you have any questions, please make sure you send them in to us on social media. Voice notes or written questions would be brilliant. And we will, of course, include them in the podcast. Have the most wonderful day. Ciao, ciao.